Imagine spending over $1 million on this brilliant new executive team.
Right, a massive investment.
Exactly, a huge investment. But then you find out they're, completely paralyzing your company because they literally don't know how to log into their email or like what your business actually does.
Which sounds like a comedy sketch, honestly.
It really does. But according to this pretty controversial new MIT study from last year, that is exactly what 95% of businesses are doing right now with generative AI.
Yeah.
I mean, it is June 30th, 2026, and everywhere you look, whether you are, sitting in a boardroom, managing a warehouse, or just scrolling your feed, the obsession with AI agents is completely unavoidable.
Oh, totally unavoidable.
But if you strip away all that marketing hype and actually look at the ledgers, a really bizarre picture emerges.
It is, I'd say it's the defining paradox of the enterprise market right now. Yeah, I mean, the noise is just deafening. The capital expenditure is astronomical. But the actual financial outcomes, the tangible, measurable impacts on the bottom line are shockingly quiet for the vast majority of organizations out there.
And that paradox, that silence on the bottom line, is the exact mission of our deep dive today.
Right.
We are looking at this brand new, incredibly comprehensive report. It's titled The Enterprise Agentic AI Landscape 2026, published by the Agentics.
It's a heavy read, but a good one.
It is. And our goal here for you listening is to cut through the relentless corporate buzzwords. We want to understand the exact mechanics of why this transition to AI agents is totally stalling out for most companies, while a very select few are quietly unlocking massive, unprecedented value.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the sheer contrast in the data we are looking at is giving me whiplash.
The numbers are definitely jarring, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
We're looking at a landscape where baseline ambition is absolutely through the roof.
Right.
Like, if you look at the Deloitte survey that's included in this report, they spoke to over 3,200 leaders across 24 countries. And roughly 75% of them expect to be using agentic AI, at least moderately, within 2 years.
75%?
Yeah. And then you have Celonis data showing that 85% of senior leaders aspire to become what they call an agentic enterprise in that exact same time frame.
It sounds like severe FOMO to me.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the fear of missing out is driving companies to buy the technology just to say they have it without necessarily knowing what it actually does. But this is where I really have to push back on the data.
Go for it.
You mentioned that heavily debated MIT study from 2025, which analyzed over 300 deployments. And it concluded that 95% of generative AI pilots delivered zero measurable profit and loss impact.
Zero.
No bottom line value whatsoever. So how is that mathematically possible? I mean, how can adoption be expanding by 50% in a single year, with nearly half of commerce organizations planning to spend at least $1 million on AI initiatives in the next 12 months, if 95% of these pilots are just entirely failing to generate cash?
It's a huge contradiction.
You don't authorize $1 million budget on a 95% failure rate unless something deeper is broken in, like how we actually measure success.
That is the pivotal question right there. And the answer really lies in a fundamental misunderstanding of what artificial intelligence is actually doing inside these companies right now.
Okay.
The report actually diagnoses this misunderstanding as the capability cliff. Most executives think they are buying autonomous agents, but they are actually just buying better calculators.
The capability cliff. I like that term. Let's break down the mechanics of that.
Sure. So think of enterprise AI not as one giant uniform monolith, but as existing in two very distinct layers of capability. Layer one is what the vast majority of companies are doing right now.
The chatbots and stuff?
Exactly. The Celonis data shows 83% of businesses are using GenAI for daily work, and 61% have deployed basic chatbots or copilots.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if you are leading a team right now, or even just managing your own workflow, you have probably felt this exact friction.
Oh, definitely.
You, the listener, probably use layer one AI every single day. You paste a massive email thread into a prompt box, ask it for a summary, and boom, it saves you an hour of reading.
Yep.
It's incredibly useful, but you're probably scratching your head wondering why that saved hour hasn't actually transformed your company's quarterly revenue.
Precisely, because layer one is just an assistant. It operates on a wait and generate mechanism.
Oh, and generate, right.
Right, it waits for a human prompt, it generates text or code within a very constrained context window, and then it completely stops. It doesn't take action, it doesn't fundamentally alter the operational metabolism of the business,
It just sits there waiting for the next prompt.
Exactly. Layer 2, however, is true agency. These are systems programmed to evaluate system states, make logical leaps, execute API calls to coordinate across different software tools, and adapt inside complex business processes without a human holding their hand every single second.
That's a huge leap.
It is. And the drop-off from Layer 1 to Layer 2 is incredibly steep. Only 23% of companies are actually developing these sophisticated agents.
The difference in mechanism is just huge. I mean, layer 1 is a chatbot telling a procurement manager, hey, this item is out of stock.
Right, and the human still has to go fix it.
Exactly. But layer 2 is an AI agent that monitors the database, notices the stock is dropping faster than the historical average, automatically pings the supplier's inventory system via an API,
Right.
negotiates a rapid freight rate based on preset budget parameters,
Yeah.
and then updates the internal inventory system before the customer even clicks on the website. The AI is actually executing the labor.
And because Layer 2 actually executes labor, we see the adoption agenda playing out very differently depending on the industry you look at.
How so?
Well, the report cites this fascinating Logic Brokers study contrasting B2B and B2C organizations. B2C brands, so your big consumer retailers, are almost entirely obsessed with customer-facing AI.
That makes sense.
Yeah, nearly 50% of them are deploying AI for product discovery and consumer chatbots. They basically want to optimize the storefront experience to drive conversions.
Which, like you said, makes intuitive sense. When you are selling directly to a consumer, the interface and the personalization, those are your primary levers for growth. You want an AI that acts as the ultimate digital salesperson.
Right. But meanwhile, B2B organizations are going deep into operations. The stakes and volumes are just different.
Operations like logistics.
Logistics, pricing, all of it.
Mm.
Over 43% of B2B companies are using AI to optimize pricing dynamically, and over 42% are using it to manage inventory and forecast demand.
Wow.
They aren't trying to make a friendlier chatbot, They're building agents to orchestrate massive, complex supply chains.
And dynamic pricing at layer 2 level isn't just like swapping out a price tag. It's an agent constantly querying competitor pricing databases, checking real-time warehouse stock levels, analyzing localized weather data to predict demand spikes.
Yes, all at once.
And then adjusting the margin in milliseconds to maximize profit. It's wildly complex. But this brings me right back to my initial confusion.
Okay, what's that?
Well, we have these incredibly smart AI models available to us now. The baseline intelligence is off the charts. So if a B2B logistics company and a local retailer both have access to the exact same underlying neural networks, why is getting to that layer 2 operational agency so incredibly hard? I mean, why are 95% of pilots stalling out if the brain power is already sitting right there on the shelf?
Because having a smart brain is really only step one. What the enterprise is failing at isn't the model's cognitive capability. It's the execution architecture around the model.
Okay, let me try an analogy here to see if I'm grasping this architecture gap.
Let's hear it.
It feels like buying an off-the-shelf AI model right now is like hiring a genius-level, Ivy League educated executive, dropping them in the lobby of your corporate headquarters and shouting, "Fix the company."
That's pretty accurate.
Right. But you give them no job description, you don't give them secure login credentials to any of your financial software, and you don't even give them a map of the office.
Nothing.
The executive is brilliant, but they are totally paralyzed because they literally have no access to the levers of the business.
That genius executive sitting paralyzed in the lobby is exactly what a raw, naked AI model is. And the report synthesizes data from Deloitte, Celonis at MIT to identify 5 sequential blockers that explain why that executive is failing.
5 blockers.
Yes. And notably, none of these blockers have to do with the AI's actual IQ.
Let's weave through these blockers, because I imagine they compound on each other. If we stick with our genius executive in the lobby, the very first problem they face is that they literally aren't authorized to touch anything.
Exactly. The report calls this weak governance. Only about 21% of organizations actually have a mature governance model for agentic AI.
21% is so low.
It is. And governance isn't just like a corporate policy document. In AI, it is digital authorization. It means setting strict coded boundaries on what APIs the agent is allowed to write to versus just read from.
Right. Read versus write permissions.
Yeah, and it requires real-time monitoring to flag anomalous decisions. If you give an AI autonomy to make purchasing decisions without these digital guardrails, it's not an asset, it's a massive liability.
Oh, for sure.
It can execute unseen mistakes or hallucinate a bad contract at machine speed.
So without governance, you either have an AI doing nothing or an AI running wild and signing vendor contracts without telling anyone. Both are terrible.
Yep.
But let's say a company figures that out. They give the AI the right permissions. It seems like the next wall they hit is that the digital office itself is just a maze. The data shows 45% of leaders are struggling with fragmented systems.
Yes. So the AI executive gets authorization, walks over to look at the inventory data, but the inventory software doesn't talk to the sales software.
Ah, right.
The CRM is on a cloud server, but the logistics tracker is running on legacy code from, like, 2005 on a local server somewhere.
A nightmare.
True agents require seamless API integrations. They need to pull data from one system, manipulate it, and push it to another. If your systems are fundamentally broken or siloed, the AI physically cannot orchestrate actions between them. The environment itself becomes the bottleneck.
Okay, so you need governance and you need connected systems.
Ugh.
But here is where the third blocker comes in, and to me, this is the most fascinating one.
Missing business context.
Yes. The report highlights missing business context. 82% of leaders know that AI needs to understand how the business actually runs to deliver a return on investment. But 45% admit they cannot supply that context.
Which is wild.
It is. How does an AI actually consume business context? It doesn't just, like,
Right.
read an employee handbook, right?
Right. An AI does not inherently understand good business sense. It operates on mathematical reward functions. If you don't explicitly encode your key performance indicators into a logic the AI can optimize for, it will fail.
Give me an example of that.
Okay, for example, if you tell a pricing agent to maximize sales volume, and you don't provide the business context that your profit margin must remain above 15%,
Oh.
the AI might just automatically drop all your prices to a penny. It achieves the fast sale metric perfectly, but it bankrupts your company in an hour.
Because it didn't know the unspoken rule.
Exactly. It lacks the nuanced, documented rules of how your specific business balances risk and reward.
That is terrifying, but it makes complete sense. It is just guessing at what you want if you don't give it a mathematical boundary, which leads directly to the fourth blocker, IT and business misalignment. 45% of companies cite this as a major issue. You have the technology team buying the AI model because the specs look great, but the actual business side, the people who know about that 15% margin rule, they don't know how to integrate the tech into their daily workflow.
It's a disconnect.
Right. The people with the tech don't have the context, and the people with the context don't understand the tech.
It is the classic corporate divide, just amplified by autonomous technology. And that inevitably results in the fifth and final blocker: stagnant operating models.
Stagnant models, meaning the human side.
Exactly. 84% of companies have not redesigned human jobs around these new AI capabilities. They are just bolting this new autonomous executive onto the exact same organizational chart from 2019 and hoping productivity magically goes up.
Instead of stepping back and saying, wait, if the AI agent is now handling all the initial vendor negotiations and inventory tracking, what should our human procurement officers actually be doing with their newly freed up 40 hours a week?
Precisely. They just leave the human in a redundant role.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, there's a brilliant quote in the report from Nishith Srivastava, the founder of the Agentics colleague, that perfectly diagnoses this entire failure cascade.
Oh, what does he say?
He says, and I'm quoting here, most enterprises are not failing because of weak AI models. They are failing because they're trying to scale intelligence without building the governed execution layer that makes intelligence usable in the real world.
The governed execution layer. That phrase is just vital. You know, a lot of people treat governance like it's just bureaucratic red tape designed to slow innovation down.
Right, they see it as a roadblock.
But a better way to think about it is like the steering and braking system in a Formula One car. You don't put massive brakes on a race car because you want to drive slowly.
Of course not.
You install them so you have the control required to drive 200 miles per hour without crashing into the wall. If you don't build the execution architecture, you can't push the pedal down, which is exactly why 95% of these pilots are stalling. They bought the massive engine, but they forgot the steering wheel.
That's a great way to put it. And this brings us to the most crucial part of the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
Because if treating these models as plug-and-play tools just results in zero bottom-line profit and wasted budgets, we have to look closely at what the winners are doing.
The small fraction actually seeing massive financial gains.
Exactly. What are they doing differently?
Let's pivot to the cure then. If I am an executive staring at a stalled pilot right now, what is the winning playbook?
It is a methodology the report calls a validation-first approach. The organizations that are actually moving the needle financially have entirely stopped running a dozen scattered, isolated pilot programs just to see what sticks.
No more throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Right. They realize that rolling out a bunch of chatbots is easy,
Huh.
but deep operational orchestration is the real long-term advantage that their competitors can't easily copy.
Orchestration meaning the ability to actually connect all those fragmented systems and execute multi-step workflows. So how does validation first work in practice?
So instead of launching a new model right away, they fix their foundation first. Let's take a hypothetical B2B logistics company. Before they let an AI agent autonomously reorder parts, they spend months cleaning up their supplier API data.
Months just on the data.
Yes, they map out the exact human process of reordering. Then, crucially, they validate the AI on their own historical data in a sandbox environment.
So it's not live yet.
Not live. They tie that specific deployment to a measurable metric, like a 10% reduction in supply chain bottlenecks. They mathematically prove the value and the safety in a controlled environment before they ever try to scale it live.
It is highly deliberate. You have to slow down the hype cycle to speed up the actual operational deployment.
Exactly. And when they finally do scale, they aren't just scaling one single monolithic superagent. The report highlights a massive leading indicator for the next 24 months.
What's the indicator?
Right now, 19% of enterprises are already running multi-agent systems, and another 71% are actively exploring them.
So a multi-agent system. I'm picturing something like a very busy, high-end restaurant kitchen.
Okay, run with that.
You don't have one single god AI trying to do absolutely everything. You have a specialized prep agent checking the digital fridge inventory, a grill agent precisely timing the cooking based on ordered data, and an expediter agent standing at the window coordinating the timing between the other two so the meal comes out hot.
Right.
They communicate with each other via a central ticketing system so they don't bump into each other. Is that the architecture we were talking about here?
That is a highly accurate visualization. Business processes are simply too complex for one generalized brain. You do not want a single AI trying to be an expert in legal compliance, supply chain logistics, and customer service all at once.
They would just hallucinate constantly.
Exactly. The frontier is having narrow, highly specialized agents that pass contextual data tokens back and forth. You have one agent designed purely to monitor inventory levels.
Like the prep cook.
Right. When it detects a shortage, it flags a separate agent specialized purely in negotiating shipping rates. Once the rate is secured, a third agent focused on internal communication updates the human team. They work in concert to achieve a single shared business outcome much faster and more accurately than a generalized model ever could.
So what does this all mean for you? Whether you are leading a massive enterprise team, running a small business, or just trying to future-proof your own career in a rapidly shifting landscape.
The takeaways are pretty stark.
They are. The action plan synthesized from this data is incredibly clear. Do not get distracted by the shiny new model updates being announced every week on social media. The brain power is already there.
It's been there.
Before you launch another pilot, audit your data hygiene. You have to build those guardrails, the coded decision boundaries, the real-time monitoring before you scale, not after things go wrong. And perhaps most importantly, you have to actively redesign the human roles around the AI. Stop bolting cutting-edge autonomous tech onto old, stagnant habits.
That is the ultimate synthesis of the landscape right now. In 2026, being AI native is no longer just a slick marketing tagline. It is a required operating system for survival.
Truly.
The gap between simply adopting AI and actually having the architecture ready to use it autonomously is the defining business story of the year. And honestly, understanding the mechanics of that gap is your greatest advantage right now. While everyone else is endlessly debating model IQ capabilities, you understand that the real bottleneck is the execution architecture.
I want to leave you with one final, totally fascinating thread to pull on based on two very specific signals buried in the data of this report. First, we talked earlier about the B2B versus B2C divide, the operational AI versus the customer-facing AI.
No.
Well, the data shows that 44.8% of companies are now hybrid, serving both business and consumer markets.
Which implies that these two distinct playbooks are rapidly merging into one.
Exactly. The hyper-personalized, customer-facing AI of the storefront and the deep, calculating operational AI of the supply chain are crashing into each other. They are forming one massive orchestrating intelligence.
It's incredible to think about.
It is, and the report notes that retail titans like Amazon and Walmart are pursuing visibly different agentic commerce strategies right now. They are placing entirely different architectural bets on how this ecosystem will operate.
They are rushing to define the fundamental rules of autonomous purchasing before anyone else does.
Which leads to a pretty wild thought. Think about the near future, as these multi-agent kitchen scenarios completely take over both the storefront and the supply chain. We are approaching a world where your company's buying agent is seamlessly negotiating with your supplier's selling agent in milliseconds, entirely without human intervention.
Just algorithms talking to algorithms.
Right. As these massive retail titans build out their different strategies, whose vision of autonomous commerce will actually win, and perhaps more profoundly, when the AIs are perfectly executing all the buying and the selling based on flawless mathematical reward functions, what happens to the messy, intuitive human art of the deal?
It fundamentally changes the entire nature of how value is exchanged in commerce.
It really does. Something complex to mull over on your commute or during your next strategy meeting. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the 2026 agentic landscape. Take a look at your own company's digital architecture today with a much sharper, more critical eye. Look for that capability cliff and look for those missing execution tracks. We'll catch you next time.